Here is the review of the Panasonic AF101.
Welcome to the review of the Panasonic AF101. Now, I've got to be honest with you, when I first got this camera just over 2 weeks ago, I wasn't that impressed with it. I thought, I was, when I first saw what it could produce, it was up and down. That was the thing that got me. Sometimes it can produce fantastic pictures, and other times they were kind of, a wee bit noisy. But that's why I've waited 2 weeks to make this review, because as time has gone on and people have had their input recipe wise as far as scene files are concerned, you discover that the camera performs far better when you set it up properly, and that's really what it's all about. So let's crack on and let's show you exactly what this camera is capable of. Okay, now as soon as you get your camera, what you need to do is press the menu button, and that'll bring you into camera menu. And within this menu, you've got scene file. So what you're actually trying to do is you're going to scene select F1, and once you're in F1, you scroll down to gamma and change it to Cine-like 5. Scroll down to matrix and make it norm 2. Now, before you do anything else, you have to go to load, safe, initialize, and from there you go up to, it's at no at the moment, you go up to save, and once you press save, it'll say scene file save. You switch it over to yes and save that file, and that's all you need to do. So you've just bought a brand new camera straight out of the box. Surely Panasonic must have got the 6 scene files right. Well, to a certain degree they have. They've got it right for Panasonic, but it's also been discovered that if you just change those 2 parameters, it gives you better colour rendition. In other words, the skin tones are better and less noise. Now, I don't quite know why it makes for a less noisy picture, but literally changing these 2 parameters gives you a far better end result. I use it in video cam mode simply because that's what I want. I want a shallow depth of field with a video camera setup. But to change it, it's quite simple. You just, obviously you've got a choice here. It says video cam. You go up to film cam. You press the button, and once again, that's you now in film cam mode. Now what that gives you is, instead of having say 9 dBs, it would be an ISO number. Another thing you'll discover is that the headphone socket has an echo in default mode. That's because it's listening to the recording itself. Well, it's simple to change. You go into camera menu, you scroll down to menu number 3 where you've got AV in and out. Then you go into this HP, which is headphone mode, and as you can see, it's in recording. Basically, you choose recording and you go up, press the button, you go up to live, press the button again, and basically that's you sorted. You're in live mode. So how long does a 16GB card last? Well, in PH mode, which is 21 megabits a second, you'll get an hour and a half out of a 16GB card. Now, both Panasonic and Transcend do 16GB class 10 cards. You can also get 32GB cards. This is Lexar and SanDisk. Now, you can also get what they call SDXC cards. Now, the main difference between the 2 cards is the XC cards have a bit larger capacity, in other words 64GB, and they are a wee bit faster when they're transferring to the computer. Okay, there's the side of the camera. Now obviously what you've got is at the top there you've got menu. You're going to use that an awful lot. Down below that you've got your start stop button, which is start stop 2 because there's start stop 1 on the other side of the camera. And the audio monitor, which is obviously plus and minus. So here we go down to the business side of the camera. Now at the very front of the camera you can see number 1 chosen. Now that's obviously your filter switch. Clear, quarter, 16th and a 64th. Now that's bog standard. You've got your bars, zebra, OIS. Now EVF detail, electronic viewfinder detail. If you want to do any serious focusing with that LCD, you must have that switched on. Down below you've got waveform monitor, and then beside that you've got the audio. Now here's what happens. It's got input 1, input 2. If you switch it, if you put your XLR into input 2, you can then choose to have input 2 go into channel 1 and channel 2. That saves you using a Y cable, which is fantastic. And down below that you have phantom power 48 volts, channel 1, channel 2. Bottom left in the front there, which you can't see at the moment, you have your auto white balance button. Now the thing about that is, while we're here, is if you hold that button down, it goes into auto black as well. So that's a very useful feature. So you've actually got auto white and auto black as part of the one button. It's just how much you hold it down as to which version you get. Then you've got this thumb wheel. Well, to me, it's a complete waste of time. I don't like it. It's clunky. It's not a precise way of moving your iris. But apart from getting an external unit like a Foxy, that is the only way you can use the iris on a Lumix lens. Moving over, you've got your usual, but autofocus, manual focus. Now, personally, I'm now using more manual focus simply because the autofocus, once again, it's not too clever. I think, to be honest, it's because it's using these Lumix lenses. They're normally used in an SLR digital camera, and to be honest, and in this type of camera, I wouldn't use autofocus because it does hunt now and again when you least expect it, and it just happens and then it comes away again, and it's a real pain in the butt because if you don't see it happening, by the time you get it back to the edit suite, that's the time you notice that you've got a slight problem. The function knob is used for selecting a specific area on the screen for various functions, and also for selecting the variable white balance. Now, the function knob can go up, down, right, left, and you can choose to actually activate it by pushing it in. And once you've done that, but in order to use it, you've got to choose it in the menu. You've got to choose in the menu what you're going to use it for. So in function mode, you'll notice it's INH. Now here we go. You've got focus, iris, Y-get, which is a waste of time. Focus iris, focus Y-get. I'll show you how to use it in iris mode because I think it's the most useful mode, apart from the variable white balance. Now here we go. So what we've got is this is working with the iris mode. Now when it's yellow, it's choosing, that's where it wants the iris to be, right? So watch the zebras when I move across and make that now. If I make that yellow by pressing the button, you'll notice that the zebra now is properly exposed. Fantastic. The function knob can also be used to adjust the variable white color temperature. So by putting the white balance switch to preset and toggling the actual button at the front, using the actual function knob, as you can see, you can turn the white color temperature all the way up to 9.9. I mean, that is unreal. So you can basically dial in any temperature you fancy, which is unheard of. Back to the switches. User 1, user 2, these are assign buttons. You can assign them to do various functions. Display mode check, that's for your LCD. You can either display everything or you can display nothing. Power on and off, self-explanatory. And the mode button, now that switches between camera and playback. So finally, looking along the bottom row of switches, the ones I'll tell you about are the gain switch, low, medium and high. Mine is set to -6, 0 and +9. Then we have the white balance. Now, white balance preset, that's very interesting. If you're on preset, what you can actually do is the auto white button at the front, if you double press that, it'll switch between 5006 or 3002, which is a nice feature. User 2, once again, that's just an assign button. And the audio level pots here, channel 1 and channel 2, well, I prefer to keep that cover on because it means you don't knock them, by mistake. So I've got them covered, and you can access them quite easily. You can get your finger into these, either one of these two. In order to switch this camera from PAL to NTSC, what you've got to do is scroll down from scene file all the way down to other functions. Then clicking other functions, you go into lens check, and then down again to system frequency, which is 50 Hz. So you'll be given a choice to go from 50 Hz to 59.94 Hz. So you move the wee controller up, choose 59.94, then you get a display which says yes or no to 59.94. Choose yes, and then the next menu says turn power off. So you turn the power off to the camera, and when it comes back up again, you're in NTSC mode. Looking at the back of the camcorder, starting at the top, you have position 1 and position 2. That's where your SDHC cards go, and depending on which slot you've chosen, in this case slot 1, you have a yellow indicator. Now coming down to your left hand side, you've got slot select. Now that's obvious what that is. Down below that you've got dial select. Now dial select allows you to cycle through the available options, which is either shutter, synchro scan or frame rate. And then once you've chosen that, obviously the wee dial below allows you to say you've got frame rate chosen, the wee dial thumb wheel allows you to move up and down through the frame rates. And just below that again, you have another wee indicator which tells you that the camera is running. So basically it's a tally lamp. Moving across, obviously you've got the battery compartment. Well, that's self-explanatory. Then you have this little index. Now, seemingly if you plug a wee remote control into this index, you have a button which allows you to index everything that happens in a live event. So say you were filming a football match. Every time there was an incident or somebody scored a goal, you could have an index mark at that, and with the appropriate software you could run through all your clips and you could pick up on all these index marks. Below that you've got camera mode, focus, iris. Now that's where your Bebob Foxy plugs into, and from your tripod handle you could control focus and iris. Below that again is SS start stop. Once again another remote to remote start and stop on a tripod handle. Below that again you have your headphone input, and then below that again you have HDMI out and SDI out. So finally, looking at the other side of the camera, we have, if you can see above input 1, you've got a couple of holes, and also on the handle itself there's a couple of holes. Initially I thought that these were D-taps, but what they actually are that's where your microphone holder, which comes with the camera, you then choose where you want to screw it onto. So you have two choices. Below that you've got input 1, input 2, line mic, obviously your XLRs, and then your other start stop button, as it's called, start stop 1, and user 3, which is an assign button. You actually have a handle there which can come off, but I've not actually taken mine off yet. If you're using, say, a Nocton lens or a lens with an adapter, you probably will have to go into the menu and disable the lens check menu. Now otherwise you end up with a black blank screen. So what happens is you go into scene file, down to other functions. Within other functions you'll see the lens check on. Now that's for Lumix lenses and say the MA1 adapter. So you switch that to off, and once you do that it's fine. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is, now the weather's not really for us at the moment, but we'll just have to try and give it a go. This is a lens test. I'm going to show you basically
the lenses from like a 7mm all the way through to 140mm and all the lenses in between, different mounts, different adapters. So let's have a go. This is the Lumix 7 to 14mm. Now it's an f4 through and through. I actually made a mistake during the filming of Isabel, and I said it dropped a stop, and it hadn't, because this actually is an f4 through and through, the Lumix 7 to 14. So that's, I'm using, there's a lamp post there, I'm using that as a corner frame so that I always know, or you'll always know what the reference is when I'm doing this. Basically, I'm going to show you what you're basically doing is lining up the red mark. There's a wee red mark on the mount here. I'm not going to show you that live at the moment because basically I want these lenses off and on as ASAP. So that should be virtually the same position as the last lens was. Obviously 14 to 14. Now this is where it makes a difference when you zoom in. Right, okay. Right, so this is a 140 end of the lens. Now this is actually a very good lens, the 14 to 140. It's a very sharp lens. The only problem is it has that one f-stop, one and a bit f-stops between, starts at f4, finishes at 5.8, so it's just one and a bit f-stops. But for all that, it's still a very good lens. Right, in order to take the lens off, press that button there. Now that exposes the sensor, which is not a good thing to do outside, but as long as you're quick, and you always must put your end caps on your lenses as well, just to keep them safe. Okay, so this is the Leica. This is one of the few lenses that Leica make for Panasonic, sharp as a tack. And this is an f2.8 lens. Now it's a prime lens, so it's only 45mm, but very good for doing interviews. Now this is one of Mike Tappa's mounts for a Nikon lens. It's the only Nikon lens I've actually got, funnily enough. So what you've got here is you've got the MTF adapter here. Now that's using a Nikon f1.8 lens, so in that circumstance you'll get some nice shallow depth of field. It's the equivalent, it's a 50mm lens, so it's equivalent because of this crop of 100mm. And what I'll do is if I just spin round on Scott here, open up the lens a wee bit. So as you can see, there's not a lot of depth of field there. It's very, very shallow indeed, which is fantastic. Now this Nocton lens is ND4-6, and I've had to put it down to f1.4. So as you can see, that's a picture of Scott, and look how shallow depth of field you've got in the background. Once again, the Nocton is the favourite lens, that's for sure, especially for shallow depth of field work. So basically what you've got here is, this is your red mark here, okay? I've got to get around the camera. And there's a red mark in this here, and that's what you've got to do, okay? Now what we've got here is we've got the Canon f1.2 50mm lens. Now that's 100mm crop, same angle of view as 100mm lens. This should be another cracking lens for doing interviews. And it is a sharp piece of, this is a fantastic piece of glass. You will not get any better, and look at the lovely shallow depth of field behind Scott. Perfect for interviews, and it does look a bit more sexy when it's on the camera because it's a lot bigger. I've come up to my aunt's house. Now we're going to show you how to make a chicken stir fry, but basically it's just to show off all the different lenses and what they do. We've also got Scott filming in the background, just so that I can kind of show you some of the wee bits and pieces, how I achieve some of the shots. Okay. What we've got here is, and I'll get Scott to come in a second, but when you format your card. Be very wary of the fact that it takes 45 seconds. Now, that's quite a lot of time. It's the only camera I've actually had that takes that amount of time to format a card. Now, there's two ways to look at it. It's either slow or it's doing a good job, but I think I'll take it as being doing a good job. Right, if you just come into there and you go down to card functions, card format, slot 1 in this case, put it over to yes, and then it says now formatting. Now that takes 45 seconds, so format your cards before you do a job.
Since filming that, I've discovered that it depends on the speed of your card, not really as much as the size of the card. As you can see, the 8GB takes a fair bit of time to format. The Transcend 16GB takes 30 seconds. And the best of them all, now this is the fastest of all the 3 cards. Although it's 32GB, it takes 7 to 11 seconds. So it might be worth the extra money for the faster card. So there we have Isabel in the background. Now, the one thing to be wary of, this is the 7mm end of it's a 7 to 14mm lens here. Now if I zoom in, obviously it's a manual zoom, it closes down a wee bit, but it's not that bad, it's only one stop. But if I get Isabel to move over to the middle section now I'll have to adjust I'll have to pull that down a bit, if you can just see that. Now what I'm trying to show you this is if you go to the 7 end, and if I see there's Scott there, right, if I just open up a wee bit, you see what happens to Scott's head. It really doesn't do anybody any favours to have them in the corner of any of the frames when you're shooting with this lens. So be wary of having people in the corner of your frame, sort of obviously over here, because as you can see it does not do them any favours. In the middle, as you can see, there's Isabel in the middle, that's absolutely fine. So that's a tip using a very wide angle lens. Okay, we have the Lumix on the left hand side and the Voigtlander on the right hand side. Now if you notice where I've placed the arrows, that's the door handle, and you'll notice now the Lumix is at 50mm, which is twice the focal length of the Nocton, so you'd expect that to be actually more out of focus because it's actually tighter in. But as you can see, the Voigtlander beats it hands down. Now once again, that's because it's at f/0.95, which makes a heck of a difference. So in order to get from 5.6 round to 0.95 to give you that lovely shallow depth of field, what you've got to do is you've got to move this to filter 3. Now, I've never known a lens indoors to have filter 3 on, to be quite honest. Now filter 3, if I just let you know, is a 16th ND. That's a lot of ND, but in order to get, because this is such a wide open lens, you really need to crank this down. But there you go. Now if I just show you the shot now. Now, okay, it's not totally out of focus, but it's better than it was. And if I was going to do an interview with Isabel, that would be a far preferable shot. Right, we're now running. So, Isabel, what do you want to make here? What's the plan?
Chicken stir fry, which can be served with a bed of rice, and it's quite tasty. Doesn't take too long to cook.
We'll see,
okay.
We'll see what happens.
Right. I'll start to prepare the veg then, okay?
Okay.
There's a knack to this. Now once again, as you can see, there's an absolute fabulous shallow depth of field here. Even if you look at the courgettes at the front there, they're so out of focus. Everything behind it. The only thing that's in focus here is actually the veg itself. Absolutely fantastic. So this is a Nocton 25mm lens, and it's probably my most fabulous lens. It's fantastic.
You know, that's a lovely shot, just a lovely out of focus background there.
Just to give you something a wee bit different, you can use that as a nice cutaway shot, and then what you can do is just do a wee pull focus, and there you go. Bob's your uncle.
Right. Hot enough. Can I go? Okay, cover the pan for a little while.
How did you feel it all went? Was it as you expected?
Yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah. Obviously, you can vary the vegetables you put in a chicken stir fry, but I chose the ones that I like to eat, and don't choose vegetables that require too many differences in how you cook them, you know, in different times or anything. But apart from that, put in what you like, and I thought it was nice. And I think everyone else did because it's all been eaten.
What we've got down here is the Bebob Foxy, which is the strangest of names, but it does the trick. It's a pull focus unit, especially made for, in this case, the Panasonic AF101. It's made for other Panasonic cameras, but the 101 it works with as well. And all you do is basically do a pan shot and then focus in on Isabel. And it's as simple as that. Or you could start with Isabel. I should stop doing that. Start with Isabel and then do a pan across to the city and pull focus to the city. And there you go. Some of the earlier Foxes, like the one I've got, won't go through infinity with the Lumix 14-140. There's an easy solution. You turn the Foxy upside down and you see two calibration pots. Now you're looking at the one on your left. So what you do is you're looking at your LCD, turning the screw clockwise, you see that you do pull it into focus. And that's you. And then you can do lovely shots like this where you can start off at a distance and there's the baby.
HD Warrior.
This is just to show you how good it is in low light. I've got a small camera light to just lift my face, and it's a Nocton F095, and the camera is at 6 dBs and in filter 1. So the reason I've swapped sides is just because it's now 9 dBs, and to be quite honest, having seen what 9 dBs looks like, it is noiseless. The larger sensor does make a heck of a difference to the availability of low light and no noise. The next one I'm going to show you, which is very interesting, will be 18 dBs, which is maximum gain. So there you have it, that is maximum gain. I've had to turn the Nocton lens down a wee bit in order to make this happen, but as you can see, look how the background is just amazing, and there is virtually no noise in my face. I mean, if I had to do this with a camera that I filmed with 10 years ago, my face would be full of grainy boils. It would be that bad. I just couldn't use 18 dBs 10 years ago. Now, there's the proof of the pudding. On the left hand side is the Sony 350, and look at my face, look round about, you know, in the street, it is full of 18 dBs of grain. Yet on the right hand side we have the AF101, and the best proof is not so much my face, though it's a lot cleaner. Look at the dark areas, there is very little grain there. That's 18 dBs. So that's the low light readings, and I've got to say this at the moment is being filmed at 18 dB. I am blown away with 18 dB. I have never in my life had any video camera that would allow me to film at 18 dB and look half decent. So just to prove it again, I am now filming myself, piece to camera, 18 dB, no lights whatsoever. The only light you're getting is the reflection of my computer screen.
Not many teams in Scotland can have comparisons to Barcelona, certainly not in terms of quality of play or personnel. But at Stirling Albion, they have one great connection, and that's that they're both run by the fans. I'm here at the Doubletree Dunblane Stadium to find out more. You've only been here a short while, Jockey. How has it been as this new concept for you?
I've been here 2 weeks now, and from the football side of it, nothing changes. Obviously, from the running of the club side of it, then there is wee bits of difference where you know, the supporters, executive committee are running the club on behalf of the other supporters, and it's possibly the first time I've come into a club where I'm being asked how this works and how that should work, or what my opinion is on how they work. Before, I've always been told how the club works and how, you know, this is the way we do it and that's the way we do it. So from that point of view, it is, you know, a little bit different.
Do you feel it's a good thing for Stirling Albion to be run by the fans?
It's very enjoyable. It's obviously something new. It's something that we're not really, none of the boys in there are used to, but we've just got to take it in our stride and stick together, and I think that's what the majority of the rest of the team do.
There you go, Stirling Albion Football Club. Real football for real fans. They really deserve this initiative to work. It's great to see fans getting involved, and I would love other clubs in Scotland, within England, within the whole entire world to get involved with a football team. It shows so much imagination.
It's not often you will hear me recommend a book because I'm not a big book reader myself, but I've got to say this is a Bible for the AF101. This is a must. If you buy the camera, take it from me, you will not waste a penny buying this book. It is fantastic. I actually met up with Barry at IBC during 2010.
101 in Europe, 100 in America, yeah.
What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's going to be a pretty big seller. It's kind of the perfect merging, or hopefully the perfect merging of professional video camera, but with the imaging and the shallow depth of field that a DSLR has. Because, I mean, the DSLRs have kind of just been an amazing explosion on the video scene because everybody loves that shallow depth of field look, but not so easy to work with. And a lot of compromises and a lot of issues, a lot of imaging issues that this now solves. So now you get all the goodness with none of the hassle, hopefully. That's the promise, at least.
So there we have it. That is the review of the Panasonic AF101. Now, I've got to say, in the last 2 weeks, this camera has grown on me. And the reason it's grown on me is because once you tweak it in the scene files, and there's only, as far as I'm concerned, there's only two things you need to do. And once you do that, then you're sorted. The noise problem is not a problem as far as I'm concerned. This camera is a delight to use. It produces wonderful pictures. I use it 720, 50p, like I've used most of my HD camcorders, and it is a joy to use. The other thing is it makes you think, this camera. You have basically fixed lenses most of the time. You don't have a zoom lens that you can even control from, say, a zoom control. These are all fixed lenses, and if not a fixed lens, it's a manual zoom. So to be honest, it's a bit jerky if you use a manual zoom manually. So you've got to think about your shots, which is good because it means you don't do sloppy shots, which you do with ENG zoom lenses. You can have an interview situation. Halfway through the interview, you're changing shot, and then you think, oh, maybe pull back to, a head and shoulders. You pull back, and so you're zooming in and out all the time. So what you're doing is you're giving the editor a nightmare, because if you don't have enough cutaways, you're never going to cut out of that. And what inevitably happens is you end up putting cutaways in twice, and I hate that. I love fresh footage from top to tail in all my productions. I hate having footage in twice, unless of course you're emphasising a point. So this camera means that you've got to think about your shots. You've got to think about your angles. Is it a wide angle? Is it a 50mm? Is it this? And to be honest, because it makes you think your shots are better and you've got more of them. So come the edit suite, you've got more choice and it'll make for a better production. And the client, the one thing that was very interesting last week, I was with the client, I was doing a shoot with David from Bars, and the one comment he made was, he said, the shots are really good, aren't they? They're very clear. Now, he has also seen me use an EX3, and although he's, you know, been in the edit suite and said, oh, these shots are very good, he didn't actually mention anything when he was out in the field. And this time he did, which basically kind of struck into my head that if he can see the difference in the shots, then there must be a difference. And Bob's your uncle. It is a fantastic camera. I would recommend this camera to anybody.